Yo guys, Lockie here from EBMX. We've got the EX9 and we're going to be installing this baby onto the Talaria MX4.
Alright, so grab your X9 and your Talaria harness kit. Open up your box. Now do not throw this informational card away. It's got quite a few handy QR codes on it. Grab out your harness, grab out your S10102, grab your bolts and bits, and there it all is, laid out on the bench. Let's get started. You want to start with removing your battery. Flick off that breaker, unplug your battery, and reef him on out. Now you want to discharge the controller by turning the bike back on. Make sure there is no power in the controller. Right, now we can take off the horn cover. 3 M6s holding this one on. Then you can take your controller off. There's 4 M6s each side of the controller. Undo these cable ties. Pull your wire harness down. Unplug your stock controller harness from the bike. Now you can undo your positive and negative, undo your phase wires, and get rid of that stinky old controller. Right, now we're going to undo the battery tray bolts and pull the battery tray back. Now unplug this plug. This is the plug that tells your controller to turn on. Now if you are doing an upgraded battery, you want to unplug your battery harness plug, which is this one, and take off your breaker. If you are not doing an upgraded battery, this won't apply to you. Now we can drop in our harness, plug the harness plug into the plug on the bike. Now we can grab your Talaria harness and the bolts and the nice little spacers. Plug in your new X9 harness into the existing Talaria harness. You can't stuff this up, it only goes one way. Now we can prep our controller bolts. You want to do spring washer and then normal washer. Right, now we can hook up our phase wires, making sure to get the colours around the right way. Tighten them down nice and snug. The way you'll know these are nice and snug is when you reef on them left and right, they do not move. If they move at all, they need to be tighter. Now you can hook up your positive and negative. Same thing, reef on them, make sure they do not move. Put your booties on, very good practice. The stock harness does not have these booties. Right, now you can plug your X9 into your X9 harness, lining up the arrows, firmly screwing it together. Now we can take off our ignition and get ready to run our 2-to-1 cable. Unplugging the Talaria 2-to-1 cable, and we're going to heat shrink this up. We can take off the Talaria S10102, heat shrink up the Talaria S10102 cable. Then we can get our X9 SW102 and bolt it up in its place. Now, you can plug this in. You can decide to run the cable all the way through into behind the ignition. But if you are worried about it having too much stress on the cable, please don't run the 2-to-1 on the external of the bike so you don't pinch the cables. In our case, there was plenty of slack to run the connections in behind the ignition. Now we're going to plug in our 2-to-1 cable, plug in our Bluetooth module, and then very neatly tuck everything back, making sure we don't pinch anything. Tuck it all back, take your time, and you can put your bolts in. Now the spacers go in between the brackets on the Talaria and the X9. Nice little black spacers provided. Then we can put our battery tray back, put in our bolts, put in our horn beauty cover, and that's it, simple as that.
So you've just installed your X9, now you've put your battery in. If you've got an upgraded battery, you want to plug her in slowly. But if you've got a normal battery, just a stock one, you can just plug straight in. Now the reasoning why is because you've got to let your discharge capacitor discharge fully before you plug her all the way in. Now you got your plug on your battery, you might have to wriggle her a little bit because It might be a little bit hard to push in, but once she's in, you'll see that she's solid. If it's not in all the way, you might not have a fun time.
All right, Lockie had to go. He had some woolen friends to attend to in New Zealand. Let's set this bike up. So we're gonna go over to settings. We're gonna start off with general. And at the top is bike type. Pretty simple. We're gonna select Talaria Sting. Then motor type is MX4. Talaria Sting MX4. Right, and then battery series. Now, if you are running stock battery, you will select 60 volt 16S, and you'll be running the stock wiring harness. So you'll want to select MX4 stock battery. Then it will automatically set your battery current limits, which is 150. Any more than that and you will trip your battery. Now, if you're running an upgraded battery, you can run 300 amps into this motor, depending on your climate, of course, and how hot the motor will get before it starts to overheat. So depending on what upgraded battery you are running, we are running a 72 volt 400 amp race battery. So we're going to come in here and we're going to press 72 volt. Obviously you've also got the option for 22S 82 volt, but we are 72 volt. And then we're going to go EBMX high power harness. And there we go. Now our max amperage in this case will be 300 amp. Then we've got wheel diameter. Now the stock 19-inch rear wheel is 620, but if you're running a different wheel, measure top to bottom and put that in accordingly. Now gear ratio, the easiest thing to do for gear ratio for the Talaria is head over to the EBMX X9000 page, and then up the top you'll want to search gear ratios. Now, the first post will be from Bridger himself. We'll click on that and that shows us all of our gear ratios. So we're running stock rear sprocket 44 tooth, which is 839. So we go back into our X9000 and we go 8.39. Done, okay. Then you can change your speed units to miles or kilometers, whichever one you fancy. Same with temperature units, Celsius or Fahrenheit if you're weird. Right, then we're going to go save. Save successful, press OK, and it's going to ask, do you want to calibrate your motor? Yes, we do. And press start. Obviously, make sure there is nothing in the way of your rear wheel, no resistance at all, nothing touching that wheel. Otherwise, you might get a faulty encoder reading. There we go, successful. Okay, now we can head out of here because we are done in there. Not quite, we're not quite done in there. Let's put it onto mode 1 and give it a little throttle. Ooh, that's gonna be fun, our wheel's going backwards. So, go back into general. Final step in general is to change your motor direction. So in our case, we're going to select anti-clockwise and press save. Now we should be going the correct way. All right, come out of general and we're going to go modes and levels. Now, once again, this is going to vary on what battery you are running. For stock battery, your max power that you can run is 10 kilowatts. So your max power will be 10 kilowatt and 500 phase amps. So there you go, 500 phase amps. Feel free, whatever the heck you want to do with these modes, knock your socks off. Something that I like to do is set all my power to the same level and then just have my modes as different phase levels depending on how torquey I want the bike for my riding conditions. If you are running upgraded battery, your max power will be 18 kilowatt. Ooh, spicy. And your max phase amps will be 800. It's way easier if you just type it in. And there you go. Once again, play around with this, whatever you like, but they're your maximums for stock and upgraded battery. You've also got street mode here as well. You can press on that. There's speed limit on that one. You can adjust that all the way up to 200 if you want to, like what race mode is. You can play around with that to your heart's desire. It's just basically a second mode. At the very top is mode after reset. Now this basically tells your bike what mode to start on. Does it start on race? Does it start on street? All right. A lot of the time you're gonna set that to race because you just want the max power. You want everything. I know you do. That's what you want. Well, that's fine. You know, you can have that. Just set it to that, right? You know, don't muck around here. We're not here to muck around, right? Now reverse strength, crank that all the way up unless you really want to be going slow backwards, then turn it down. But I crank it all the way up because it's not that fast anyway. So now we're going to go into throttle and let's just speak about this real quick. So if you are running stock battery, your maximum off throttle regen strength is 25. Any more than that and your BMS will trip. So 25 is your maximum. If you are running a nice big boy upgraded battery, feel free to crank it all the way up to 100% and launch yourself over the handlebars. Knock your socks off. The other thing for off throttle regen, obviously turn it on if you want to use it. And then thumb throttle, you can press on thumb throttle and you can tell it what you want it to do. Do you want it to be an accelerator? Do you want it to be a brake? Or do you want it to be a E-clutch? That's pretty cool. You can muck around with that if you like. But in our case, we're going to leave it on regen brake. Scrolling down further is all your settings for your throttle. Now we did a whole video on this, so go to our YouTube and find that video if you want to learn what all these different parameters do. You can customize your throttle exactly how you want it, which is really cool, but we're not going to get into that now. Press save and come out of throttle. Right, now we can go into controller calibrations and we can set up our twist throttle. Set up at the start there. Start wizard, okay, away we go. Oh, there you go, right? It says here, make sure your bike is in mode 0, otherwise your bike might do a wheel stand and get away from you if it's not on a stand. So make sure it's in mode 0, so there you go, that's something for you. Press okay. Other thing is as well, if you have a 2024 Sur-On, press 2024 Sur-On. If this is not a 2024 Sur-On, don't press 2024 Sur-On. Simple, easy, basic, right? Start wizard, let's go. We wait. And then it says twist your throttle minimum to maximum. So we just do this. Pulsing back and forth, rolling our throttle back and forth, nice and slowly. And there we go, we are done. It set our maximum and minimum throttle voltages. Press save. Now we can do the same on thumb regen. Start wizard, away we go. It's quite fun, really. Boom, there we go. All right, save that, and we're done there. Not quite. Keep scrolling down to field weakening. Now, your maximum field weakening on stock battery is 50%. Any more than that, you'll trip your BMS. Upgraded battery is 80%. You can turn that all the way up to 80% and have a field day. That is awesome. Right, we have low battery reduction level. Now this is really cool. This is a new feature that's just been put into the X9. Basically stops the X9 from cutting out completely when the battery starts to get low. So you can play around with this. I noticed it's about 30%. The battery is like at 40% when the controller starts to throttle back. So 30% is quite high. So for most cases, you're probably only gonna run like anywhere from 0 to 10%. But play around with it and yeah, it's a really nice feature. Right, and that's it. But firmware. Now, if you have pressed on firmware and it says there is a new firmware version available, oh no, you got to reset up your bike again. No, you don't. So come back over to General and scroll all the way down. This is a really cool new feature where you can go Save App Configuration. So press Setup on that, press Start, find a location on your phone you want to save it, press Save, save successful, and that's it. Now the configuration of the bike is saved to your phone, which is cool. So that means after a firmware update, you come back into here and you go Load App Configuration, Start, select your configuration, successful, and that's it. That's all you have to do if you update your firmware, so that's a really cool feature. The other cool feature of the X9 is obviously you can give it a name. I've given this bike a name of Michael. That is pretty cool. But you can register your bike. So that means you can lock your X9, which is really cool. So you can give it a username and a password. Every time you want to change a setting, you have to type in that password. So no longer can people log into your controller, change your power modes and beat you in a race. It's not a thing if you lock your controller. So that's really, really cool. Quite a nice little feature there, bit of ease of mind. But there you go, that's it. Simple as that. Your MX4 is ready to rip. Get after it. We'll see you in the next one.